You're listening to Someone Like Me, your cancer community podcast. I'm Vanessa and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're out walking the dog, making a cup of tea, or just trying to remember what day it is, this space is for you. It's all about real, raw, honest stories. Chats with people who've been through cancer or stuck beside someone who has. You might laugh, you might cry, but most of all, you'll feel connected. So let's get stuck in and let's make cancer a little less lonely together. Hi everyone and welcome to Someone Like Me, your cancer community podcast with your host Vanessa. This is my very first episode and I'm really excited to share this one with you. Today I'm joined by Sharon and John Fitzmaurice, a brilliant couple who've been through prostate cancer together. John is now in remission, and in this conversation we talk about what it's really like to go through something like this as a couple. The emotions, the challenges, and the support that they got them through it. It's open, it's real, and it's full of heart. So let's get started. Hello and welcome, Sharon and John. I'm delighted to have you here today.
Thank you, Vanessa. Delighted to be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's great. And being my very first interviews and getting it all out there and just educating the people and letting them know, ups and downs of cancer treatment as I've gone through it myself, John, and you know yourself. And just like to maybe bring you back to when you first found out or any symptoms or anything that led you to it. It'd be great to share with the audience.
Yeah, I didn't have symptoms, Vanessa. I was quite lucky. We're going back now to April 23, and I had a little spot on my eye here, a little brown spot that came up, and Sharon was going, you should go and get that checked, and I was going, yeah, I will. And I had been getting regular blood tests anyway because there is a history of prostate cancer in my family. I had been getting my annual tests. So I was coming close to the annual test. So I said, yeah, look, my test is coming up. I'll get it checked then. And Sharon was going, no, just go and get it checked. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll make an appointment, go and get it checked. And the spot turned out to be nothing. I can't remember the name. The doctor had a name for it. It was quite long. I forgot it straight away. But he just said, look, that's nothing. We can freeze it off here today. He had a student doctor in with him as well. So it was educational for him to see that and how it was treated. And that was that. But then, so he did my blood test as well, of course.
Yeah.
It's a full range of bloods, including the PSA for the prostate. And I also had a physical exam that day as well for the prostate test.
Okay.
Now, the physical test showed up nothing. It was clear, so all good, well, tickety-boo, and it was only 2 weeks later when the doctor phoned me up and he said, your PSA is quite high.
Okay.
And he said, it's 23.
And what is that? What's the highest, John?
That was my question. I said, John, it's 23. And I said, is that high or low or what? The doctor said it's high. And I said, what's it supposed to be? And you went...
Yeah, well, that's it. I didn't know. I had to ask him. I said, well, what's it supposed to be like, So he said, well, normally for somebody your age is about 3, 2.5 to 3.
Wow. Okay.
And so the exact words he used were, yours is through the roof, So he said, and I had no symptoms to lead me to that conclusion at all. No fatigue, no sickness, nothing like,
No. And you had no problems going to the toilet, like you see all the
nothing
all the
like that. Yeah, you often hear, when there's, when there can be swelling in the prostate, it can lead to pain when you're passing urine. But no, I had nothing like that. Nothing to lead me to think that there might be something wrong.
Wow.
Other than the little spot on my eye.
Yeah, in a way, that kind of saved you,
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
His wife annoying him.
Yeah, that's it. You're like,
I was sitting beside him, Vanessa, and I kept saying, because John is quite dark, and he'd be prone to moles and things like that. But just this was kind of annoying me every time I saw it, But again, as I say, sometimes signs come in different ways, and maybe that was a warning sign. And thank God John heeded the nagging wife and went for the blood test because it saved your life, really.
Yeah, and it's so important, and
sometimes it's good to have someone pushing you.
Yeah, and it would have been the last thing you're thinking about when you see a mold. You're not thinking prostate cancer or anything like that. You
Yeah.
think, God, just make sure it doesn't become like skin cancer or something, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't worried about it. I mean, I know as you get older, you get little blemishes on the skin and stuff, and
Yeah, of course.
you'd be fairly aware of the dangerous ones. If they're
Yeah,
bigger and thicker, then you would be worried. But this, I wasn't concerned too much about this one, but
yeah.
said, look, go and get it checked anyway, like.
And so when he said you were like extremely high through the roof, then you were kind of like, okay, did he call you in for a meeting? Was it?
What he did actually was he said, look, he says, look, let's not panic here. He said, there's different reasons why a PSA might be temporarily high. So he said,
Yeah,
we'll do the test again just to be sure.
yeah,
So he did it again, did the bloods again, and just the PSA this time. So whereas the first time around, it took 2 weeks to get the results back. This time it was in a few days because it was just the PSA. So it
okay,
was the same. It was the same again, 23. So he said, right. He says, I'm going to refer you to a urologist, and then it was fairly quick. Then I think I can't remember how
Mm.
long it took me to get in to see the urologist, but it wasn't very long.
yeah,
I think because the PSA was so high, they
yeah,
Alarm bells went off, they said.
yeah. Oh Lord! And so after that, when you had it was the blood test, and then you had the meeting with your consultant,
Urologist.
urologist,
Yeah.
and so did they say to you like, I know when mine it was like bring a family member with you for the results. I
Mm.
got a letter. Did you get anything like that, or was it just?
they didn't say that, but Sharon was happy to come in with me, like
Yeah.
eager to come in, and I
And
was quite happy to have her there as well.
were you expecting it, or like I knew because they did the biopsy on my breast and under my arm was.
Mm.
Did you have a feeling, that kind of feeling that you have, or were you kind of going, no, this will be grand?
It was neither really, if I had no history of it in my family, I just
Yeah,
was completely out of the blue. Then
yeah,
I'd be thinking, this can't be right. There's a mistake here. I'll be fine. But I think because as I had that strong history in my family, I knew there was a good chance that it could come knocking on my door.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I was aware that, yeah, look, there's a possibility there could be something here, but let's not panic yet. Let's wait and see where it
yeah.
goes.
And if you're anything like me, were you Googling and going, I didn't have that, I don't have this, so I'm okay. That's what I was doing.
Mhm. I don't
Or
think
was
we
Sharon,
Googled.
Not,
was Sharon
yeah,
Googling?
No, I
not so
would.
much at that stage. No,
No, I
no.
think one of the things that I remember somebody saying is don't go on Google, and because
The
you'll
worst
get the
thing.
worst case scenarios. But
Yeah,
I think when it was after the blood tests and you had to do the biopsies and the MRIs and all of that,
Mm.
and there was such a rush, everything was happening so
so
fast.
quick.
Yeah, I had a feeling like there's so much happening, and you were
Yeah,
dealing with one thing at the time, weren't you? And John
Yeah,
is very much about just dealing with as it happens.
yeah,
So it was for me, it was like, God, this must be serious if
yeah,
there's all of this rush. I had a
mm.
feeling, but still the hope that it wouldn't be,
of course.
what John thought it might be.
Mm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
what happened then, John? Like, how does it work? Is there stages with prostate cancer as well, or is it?
yeah. Everything is at a stage. So the first is your initial consultation with the
Yeah,
urologist, and he goes through. They did a blood test again, of course.
yeah,
They talk about your history, and they outline what might happen next. So the next stage then was a biopsy.
okay,
So
yeah,
they brought me back for that fairly quickly again, and the biopsy is where they take a sample of your prostate
yeah,
through your back passage. It sounds exciting.
yeah. I know.
It's nothing to be worried about. There's a little bit of discomfort.
It could save your
You just
life,
you just you
exactly.
just say, look, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
probably hurt the doctor more than it hurt me.
Yeah, that's true. Just erase that from your memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they take little samples from different areas of your prostate and test them,
Yeah,
and then after that, then you're brought back into the consultant again. He has the results of that. That was in June. That was about 2 years ago. Actually, it was this
Mm.
time, about this
yeah.
time 2 years ago, and he said, yeah, we have a confirmed diagnosis of it was grade 5 cancer, and he said grade 5 was the most aggressive one.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
that's when
That's when
yeah
the
that's
shock
when it
kicked
became
in.
real then.
Yeah.
Basically, we called him Dr. Blunt.
Very good.
That's what we nicknamed him because it was, and I said to John, their emotions can't get in the way, but when you're sitting in that room, and
Yeah.
obviously I'm just the family member, the wife, but
Yeah.
he was telling John, and he said, it is cancer, and he said, but if you didn't if you didn't find it or you don't do anything about it, you've a 10% chance of survival in the next year.
Wow.
So that stuck with me. I was like, how could he say that straight out?
Yeah.
But what he was trying to do, and you only look back in hindsight and you say, he was trying to show you how serious this was. And if it wasn't caught in time, if you didn't get that check, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be here maybe in a year. So that
Exactly.
really brought it home. But I remember looking at the consultant and going, he's not even sick. He's so healthy.
Yeah, of course.
With
Yeah,
no symptoms.
absolutely.
He lives a very healthy life. He eats well, exercises, everything. And
Yeah.
he still had prostate cancer. But he said the likelihood of John getting prostate cancer was over 70% because there was a family history of prostate
Really.
cancer.
And when you say family history, did your father have it or your brother or was
Yeah,
it?
my father and all my uncles on his side, all of
Right,
them.
okay. So it's very high. And is there any tests for people, like for the people that are listening, that you can get early
There is,
detection?
as I mentioned before, I used to do my annual testing, so it's the physical exam and the blood test. The
Yeah.
blood test is the most important one,
Right,
and
okay.
because as I found out, the physical exam can be wrong.
Yeah.
It might not show up something that is there, but the blood test is foolproof. And
Yeah.
if you have cancer in your prostate, it raises your PSA levels, and that will be detected in the blood.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's a
So it's so important
very
just to
simple
get
test.
checked.
What they say is that once you reach the age of 50, you should be going every year. But if you have a history of prostate in your family, you should be doing that from the age of 40.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
It's very similar
um,
to the breast cancer, actually.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know,
my brothers are now getting tested twice a year.
yeah. And they're absolutely dead right. Yeah. And so after the initial shock when you were sitting there, like, how did you feel when you heard it, John and Sharon? Like, for me, it's surreal, isn't it? It's kind of a moment where I felt like I was watching a TV show and it wasn't me. You kind of come
Mm,
out of your body a little bit.
mm,
Did you?
Yeah, I suppose look at everyone is different. I suppose because I knew there was a good chance that I could have this. I
Mm,
was already prepared to hear that.
okay.
Emotionally. So it didn't
Yeah.
come as too much of a shock to me, hearing that it was a grade five and I didn't even know that, I didn't know about grades, but he said grade five, that is the most aggressive. So that I suppose was the most shocking thing,
Yeah. Where they were throwing everything at you now, when you hear that,
Yeah,
it's kind of
it
like,
was hitting me with the facts, and
yeah,
that's at the time, as Sharon said, it's blunt, but it's what you need to hear. I mean, the biggest fear around cancer is the unknown, I think,
mm,
oh,
So the more
yeah,
knowledge you have, the more awareness you have and about what you have and how it can be treated, then
yeah,
that takes a lot of the fear away.
mm,
yeah, exactly. 100%.
mm.
And Sharon, how did you feel when you heard it? Obviously were you expecting it as much as John or
No, even
no?
though, as I said, when everything was moving quite fast, and again, here we were, kind of, how did we not know that 23 was high, and
Yeah,
it didn't even sink in that it was, this grade. When he said it, it was like, what does that mean? But I remember the words. He said, this is a very aggressive cancer, and the word aggressive,
yeah,
used with anything is, quite frightening. So that stuck with me, and the 10% chance of survival, and that, the only option that John had was surgery
right, okay,
at that
yeah,
time. And it was like there wasn't other options. So everything seemed to be, and I know, unless I said we called him Dr. Blunt, but really he
yeah,
was amazing because he said there was many surgeons that may have not have touched John. They were all things that I remember going, we're actually lucky we found this
yes,
surgeon, very lucky that we found him, and that that this was a blessing that we had to be grateful for. But I suppose, again, as I said, but he's not even sick and he'd no
yeah,
symptoms.
yeah,
And it was then like, okay, this is what's happening next. And we went out the door, and I could feel the tears coming in my eyes. And
of
there was a
course,
nurse specialist that we went into her office, and she was giving John her card. And She looked at me and the tears were coming down my face. I was trying to hold it in. And
Yeah.
John wasn't crying or anything. He was fine, on the outside. And I could see her looking at me. And I felt like, oh my God, she's probably saying, will you shut up crying? It's not you that has the cancer.
But that's the thing with cancer. It affects everyone, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
That's
really
it, yeah.
just,
And I'm sure that was nothing unusual for her to see either. Like,
no,
because
no.
one thing that struck me, you know, every time you go to meet the consultant, like there's a process of checking in at the urology department, and there's stages of waiting areas,
Hmm.
and you know, it was amazing to see how many people were in there every day, with wives waiting for them and stuff.
It
So
really
many,
opens
so
your
many.
eyes,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
especially,
That struck me very strongly.
Mm.
Like, how many people this affects.
oh,
But what,
yeah,
again, talking about that, oh, you've given me the shivers, John, because I remember going back into it and realizing we're not the only ones. There is so many men going through prostate cancer treatment. But again, on reading up about it, I think it was my sister, she loves Google, and she was sending me, and she said prostate cancer in men is now as common and as high as breast cancer in women.
yeah,
But it was being
absolutely.
undetected because men weren't going to get their checks. So by the time there was an issue, it was sometimes gone too far, too late, whatever reason.
Mm.
But men, again, through history, don't like to talk about those things, don't want
No,
to go and get a check, pretend it's not happening. And we all understand that nobody wants to go and get their bits looked at.
no.
But as women, we've got our bits looked at for bloody years.
And squashed, let me tell you.
Yes, absolutely. So for women, it has become the norm to go and get checked.
Yeah,
For men, it's now becoming the
the
norm.
norm.
And that's why John was very vocal in sharing,
Yeah,
what
which
he'd
is
gone through,
brilliant.
because everyone was shocked when John was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer because he was fit and healthy and he
Yeah.
was young. And I know 20-year-olds won't think John's young, but he was young.
Oh, he
Especially our
is.
20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, isn't it amazing when you're in there in the waiting room with everyone and you're looking around and you see all the different age demographics coming in and out, and it
Mm.
just, like, I don't think people realize the effect of cancer until it comes knocking on your door. And when you're
Mm.
put into that situation and you're sitting there and you're waiting and you're watching everyone's reactions, it just
Yeah.
becomes, and it's appointments after appointments and
Mm.
everything like
Mm.
that. But the one thing I will say, John, prostate cancer is really curable as well, which is great. So
Yeah.
it's up there with the breast cancer once caught early, and
Yes.
what you're doing is amazing, and spreading the word and telling the men get up and just do the blood test. It's
Yeah.
it's very simple and it
It
could
is. It's
save your
simple.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And it did for me. That test saved my life.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's a simple test once a year, when there's no other issues,
Yeah.
for peace of mind, if nothing else, like.
And what happened then after you left the hospital? Were you sitting in the car going, did that just happen? John, don't tell me
Mm.
you drove.
He did drive, yes.
There was nothing wrong with me.
There was nothing wrong with him. He was, that's what I said. If you saw us walking out of the hospital, you'd probably think it was me that was after getting the diagnosis, because I was
Yeah.
teary-eyed and had my arm around John, and I was like, "Are you okay, darling?" And he was going, I am really okay." He said, and what he did say was, he said, "I'm worried about how my mom and our kids will take it."
Mm.
Of course,
So
yeah.
that's John to a T, always considering other people. So we left the hospital that day and we got 2 coffees and, I don't know, a sausage roll or something. And we
Yeah.
went down to Ballylahan Beach and we sat there for a while just to process the news ourselves.
Mm.
And it was actually the 14th of June, John, when you were diagnosed. I remember the date,
Yeah,
the way you remember dates in your head. And
absolutely.
when we came out of his office that
Mm.
day, and we sat there and we were like, okay, we're going to sit down with the kids. You'll have to go down and tell your mother face to face, not on the phone, because again, it
Yeah,
is a shock for other people to hear it.
of
And one
course.
of the things I think I remembered most about John at the time was you saying, John, that he said, "I have it, so I have to just deal with it." He said, "But because we were onlookers, you
Yeah.
feel helpless." And he knew that, and it was the emotional reaction, wasn't it, from others, really?
Oh, it's the
That
look on
was,
their face, isn't it, John, when they're looking
Yeah.
at
yeah,
you?
that's the hardest thing to deal with, in a way. I mean, I
Yeah,
can I can deal with my own emotions,
yeah,
and I know there's, I have this disease, but there's treatment for it, and the outcome is good.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
can handle the emotions, but I can't handle other people's emotions.
No. And did you get the side head when you meet people? Oh, how are you feeling? Later on, not family members. You'd be in the shops. I'd often find I'd be in shops and, people coming up and go, Lord, I heard you had breast cancer. Oh, how are you, poor thing? And I'm
Yeah,
like, I haven't spoke to this person in probably 10 years.
yeah,
It's just
Mm.
funny how it's kind of people randomly come up that know you from afar and just start talking to you or to start telling you, I know such a person who had it and
Yeah,
mm,
and you
yeah,
hear everyone's story and you're just
yeah,
kind of stand there going, I barely know you, but okay, thanks.
yeah.
yeah. No, you do. You get all kinds of reactions. You do, and like you said, you hear about more stories then because
Yeah,
everybody knows somebody who's going through it. Like,
But also that it's like when you were diagnosed, and then people you knew but maybe hadn't seen in a while, that John didn't even realize they had gone through prostate cancer treatment.
yeah, wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
mm,
we were a little bit shocked that there was so many kind
Mm,
of that we'd known, acquaintances, old friends sometimes as well from years ago. There was so many people that we heard. So again, what happens, it's like anything, isn't it? It's
yeah,
when it's in your awareness, you start hearing more about it.
yeah,
Yeah, so look at it. It's something that I think both of us now have learned so much about prostate
mm,
cancer, about cancer treatments, all of that. And even our kids now have been more educated in it. And also
absolutely.
that it's not the end of the world. Sometimes when you get a cancer diagnosis, there is fear around it. And I suppose when we were telling the kids,
Yeah,
John was John was great. He was saying, "I know the facts, and I'll tell you the facts," but he said, "I can't tell you anything else after that." So I was watching their reaction to see how they were going to be able to cope with this.
and
And because John is so grounded and he just says it as it is, they didn't have as much fear, which was
brilliant.
great. Yeah. So my
mm,
advice, if anybody has been diagnosed and they're worried about telling family members or friends, to just say it as it is, state the facts as it is.
Yeah,
And that's all you can do. You can only stick with the facts as they are now. And it's to say that you are not just the cancer, you are more than the cancer.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's why people look at you and they have sympathy because cancer, there's such fear around the
yeah,
word, huge fear the minute. And I said to John, that's one of the things I said in the hospital. Wish they'd
yeah.
feckin' change the name to something else, I said,
Yeah, that's very
because
true.
it is, because the energy of it is all around fear, fear, fear.
And
So
death,
I
that's it.
constantly remind people there is loads of people that have survived cancer, and we don't hear about them as much as we hear about the people that have passed from cancer.
Thank you
Yes,
for saying that. Yeah, it's
yeah.
very important.
And there's more people that die from diabetes than there is from cancer.
Yeah, yeah,
mm,
100%.
mm,
That's a really valid point that you brought up there because people are so afraid of it and terrified of it. But it's more about educating yourself and getting there and getting tested. And there's so much they can do now. It's
Mm,
only a chapter in your life. It's a big chapter and it definitely changes your views on certain things. But in a way, that's over with now and you've learned from it and you grow and you become stronger and
mm, yeah,
you don't have as much worries or stress, I find anyway. I don't
yeah.
take things to heart as much. But
Well,
John,
what could
mm.
be
you
harder?
struck me like you're kind of a person anyway that's quite laid back and chilled anyway, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think very much as you said there, it does change you, but changes you for the better,
Mm,
You do
Yeah,
you start to look at the positives, you make little tweaks in your lifestyle as well,
yeah,
which improves things overall,
yeah.
so yeah, while it's not a diagnosis anybody wants to get,
No,
when I come through this, touch wood, when I come off the medication and my PSA stays low, I'll be a better person.
absolutely. And how long is your treatment for?
I have another 7 months on medication, and then they do a review. Then I come off the medication, and they do a review. Then see if the PSA stays low. At the
Yeah.
moment, my PSA is less than 0.02, which is what they describe as undetectable. And
mm.
that's where
Wow, that's great.
for somebody who has had prostate cancer, that's where it needs to be. The figure
Oh,
of 2.5, 3, that doesn't apply to me anymore.
oh, that's
Mine
brilliant.
needs to be way down there.
Yeah.
So the plan, hopefully when I come off the medication, it'll stay low, and then after that, it's 3 monthly checkups for a while, then it goes
Yeah.
to 6 months, and gradually they draw it out. But I'll still be going in for a long time. I'll be going in at least once a year for a checkup.
Oh, yeah, you'd be monitored like a baby, really. And, in a way
Yeah.
that gives you comfort. It does for me, because, you become more aware of your body and you're aware of any signs. And also, what symptoms and side effects did you have from it? Because I'm sure
Well,
there
that's
was
the
lots.
that's the thing. I've never had any symptoms from the cancer itself. I mean, from the medication,
Yeah.
there is a slight side effect. I get I get hot flashes similar to
Stop
the
it.
female
Don't. You're
menopause.
joking, really. I
Yeah,
was just going to say, at least you don't get the menopause. And now you poor thing.
Excuse me now, Vanessa. I can say, welcome to my world, John.
yeah. So the medication I'm on is it's a hormone reduction
Oh, God.
medication. So it
Same as
reduces the
me.
testosterone in our body. So testosterone is fuel for the cancer cells. So
Yeah.
if you cut down the testosterone, it keeps the cancer cells at bay, and it keeps the PSA down. So
Yeah.
so yeah. So with less testosterone, I get the hot flashes, and
Yeah. You're
so
like, what is this?
it interrupts my sleep a little bit. But apart from that, I just get on with it.
Mm.
Oh,
There's no
okay.
big issue.
And that's
Um,
the main one. You don't have any like sore bones or anything like that because I know.
No, no, that was part of the process after I had the biopsy and it was
Yeah.
confirmed. There was a series of scans done after that. They do a full body scan for bones.
Yeah.
They do a what do you
Your
call the one?
organs,
Yeah,
all
all
of
the
that.
organs, all the torso.
Yeah. CT head to
They do a
toe.
full check on everything to make
Yeah.
sure that
Your brain, the works. You're literally like
Yeah.
yeah,
you're gone through this machine. I know but look, isn't it brilliant that they're doing that and it's
yeah,
Mm.
great that, the waiting and the fear of that though is about very scary, especially for me.
Mm.
I heard invasive cancer, where you heard aggressive. They're more or less the same, so you're kind of
Yeah.
holding your breath.
And I
Thankfully,
think,
we're
again, as
very
John
lucky.
said, the way they describe it is to not frighten you, but show the seriousness of it, whether we like it or not. That's
Yeah,
what it was. But one of the things I'd say, we're very grateful because they moved so quick. Once you were diagnosed, they move
yeah,
so quick, don't they, John, with any
yeah,
kind of alarm bells, surgery, like radiation, John was lucky
yeah,
because he got through all of those really well. Like, he
yeah.
still had to rest and recover and mind himself, and you had radiation every day for 7 weeks,
Oh
and he
wow,
still
that's a
went to
lot.
work, and it was a lot of driving in and out and going to work and everything, but you got through all of it, didn't you?
yeah. Look, I was. It can affect everyone differently. I suppose I was lucky. It didn't hit me too hard.
Mm.
God, you're very
Um,
lucky with radiation. I couldn't get out of bed. Like and
Mm.
to
yeah,
go to work with it, that's, it's
I
great that
actually
you.
continued refereeing right through it.
I can just
So,
imagine it.
but I think that actually helped me,
Yeah.
because I think,
Kept you.
when you start off fit, it helps your
Yeah.
recovery better.
Mm.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Seven
no, it
weeks,
did.
that's a long time.
Yeah, towards the end now, I was starting to feel a bit fatigued in the evenings. All right, but
Yeah.
He'd be falling asleep, Vanessa, and
You'd
he'd
be
be
like,
pretending he wasn't tired.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was saying, it's okay to give in to it, John.
yeah,
Just go with it. Just go with it.
Yeah.
I went with it anyway. I love my sleep. So I was just like, I remember when I was diagnosed and I said to my nurse, wouldn't it be great if you could just like put you into this kind of safe cocoon and then you can wake up and
Mm.
it's all over, like the
Yeah.
treatment and the surgeries and everything, and you don't have the trauma then or the
Yeah.
effects of all of that. She was
yeah,
like, don't think that would work.
No. I suppose it's part of processing it all as well,
Yeah,
because people think of, and that, Vanessa, that it's just a physical thing, but it's mentally and emotionally, it affects you on so many levels.
yeah,
And sometimes there are people you can talk to about it and they will listen and support you. And as you
yeah.
said, other times there's people that tell you, about everybody else. They're not really listening to your story.
No,
And sometimes you just want to cry. Sometimes you want to be on your own. Sometimes you might not have the energy to deal with other people, even your family.
Yeah.
Everyone is going to go through differently. So it's not just a physical issue.
Yeah.
Every part of you mentally and emotionally is going to be affected as well. And John was great in the fact that we're obviously very open and we had
Yeah.
so many conversations. We
Yeah.
even talked about, dying. We
Yeah.
talked about, didn't we, John, and we weren't afraid to talk about it. Like, what if this doesn't work? What if you get to a stage and they say there's nothing else that can be done? How do you feel about that? And it was very open because we're afraid to talk about,
Yeah.
death, and
Absolutely.
we're all going to pass from this world. Of course, we don't want to go for a long
No, I'm
time.
getting shivers even thinking about that. But it's,
Yeah.
it just shows the strength and the relationship that you guys have, which is, I'm sure, like, sure, you're two lovebirds anyway. I'm sure everyone knows
Eh,
that.
he's all right. He's all right.
Do you think it's actually strengthened your relationship? Like, you had a
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
great,
think it has. Yeah, I think it has.
yeah,
It's brought us. Yeah, we're always close, like, but it has brought us closer. I think.
yeah, I suppose because when you're hit with this whole realization of, I suppose, I know everyone is afraid of the word cancer, but you still have that shock through your system, don't you? You know?
Mm.
Mm,
And like, still, do you ever have fears afterwards of coming back or reoccurrence or anything like that?
I
John?
don't.
No, no, yeah, like we don't know what's going to happen. I
Yeah,
could,
yeah, yeah.
well,
Well,
something
that's a
else,
great mindset. So many
something else
women
could happen, like,
overthinking.
So you deal with what you know, and there's
Yeah,
no point in being afraid of what you don't know, like, So
Yeah.
that is so true. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And did you're back working full time from the beginning and everything with it? You didn't take much
the
time.
only time I stopped working was after the surgery. They wanted me to take at least a month off, so I took 6 weeks off and did absolutely nothing for 6 weeks, and it had nothing to do with the fact that the Rugby World Cup was on at the time.
Ah, brilliant. Love it. Yeah, you're like, I'll take advantage of
Um,
this now and
yeah,
see it all.
major surgery, like,
Absolutely.
even though it was a robotic surgery, it was actually the surgeons weren't in there with their hands. It was actually a robot called the Da Vinci robot.
Oh, I've heard about
Fantastic
that.
piece of equipment,
Yeah,
like, and it was
yeah.
controlled by two brilliant surgeons. But the great benefit of that is that the recovery time is
So much.
reduced, and there's less, and more importantly, there's far less chance of infection.
Mm,
Um,
Yeah,
which that was brilliant, like,
mm.
So yeah, so I spent longer than I needed to, resting and recovering afterwards. And
yeah.
then after that, I was able to progress with my recovery a lot faster then,
Mm.
because I had
Okay.
taken that time initially. Uh,
Okay, that's good
I was back.
advice, you know.
I recovered very quickly after that then.
Yeah, it's because,
So I had the surgery in September 23. By December, I was back refereeing on the pitch again.
oh, wow.
That's kind of the way I gauge things.
That's
I was back.
brilliant, though.
I
It's
was back
great.
working before that, of course, but
Yeah.
but I
Yeah,
was back to full activity by
yeah,
December.
And
absolutely.
Vanessa, do you know what one of those, you see, this is, we look at the positives of it. So one of the positives that we both changed because of John's diagnosis was our nutrition.
Mm.
Because
Yeah,
obviously that was the only thing I Googled, because I realized there's nothing else I could do but support John, but that
yeah.
nutrition has a huge part to play in our physical wellness, in our mental and emotional wellness as well. So I researched everything I could about what's good and what's not good for the prostate, what's good for people that have been diagnosed with cancer, and we changed our whole nutritional plan, which
Okay.
was huge benefit to John as well. But one thing made me laugh was John had lost weight, but not because of the cancer diagnosis, but because of changing to being vegetarians. I remember any time that somebody saw John and hadn't seen him in a while, they could see the shock because he'd lost weight. They were like, instead of saying you look good, they didn't say anything. I remember even your brother looking at you, and I said, "Didn't John lose a lot of weight?" And he was going, "He did." And I said, "That's through the being a vegetarian now." And he went, "Yeah."
And is there links with like the meat and the vegetarian side of things? Actually, that's quite
Well,
interesting.
again, I would say everyone, if there's
Yeah,
things that we can control and there's things obviously we can't,
yeah.
but nutrition is a huge part
Mm.
of so many things. And again, we know
Yeah.
now that sugar has a huge contribution to cancer growth within
Yeah.
the physical body, for lots of other unwellness diseases in the body.
Yeah.
So it really is about finding something that's going to support your physical well-being, support your recovery during surgery, during the treatment, because you may not be able to eat the same things you did. Maybe you'll need more protein. That may come from meat for some people, or you can get protein from lots of other things as well. So for us, this was a huge thing that we changed, and you could really see the benefits in John,
Oh,
because again,
brilliant.
even for surgery, if it's harder to recover from surgery when you've weight on as well. So,
Yeah.
changing your diet is huge. And I'm not saying diet, I'm saying your nutrition, what you put into your body.
Yeah.
And the other lovely thing, which was a positive, was when John was talking about his 6 weeks off, that I was saying to John, that was the first time we're 25 years married, but 30 years together. That was the
Yeah.
first time we ever had 6 weeks together fully, night, noon, and morning. I mean, like, because we both
Yeah.
work
Yeah. Of
and all
course.
of those things, but it was 6 weeks. We used to get up and have our breakfast outside. The weather was lovely. We'd have our lunch together. We'd have our
Yeah.
dinner together. We used to sit out and watch the birds.
Oh, lovely. You didn't get sick of each other then.
No, it was just this beautiful. That's what I mean. There was so many pluses to
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
finding that, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely easier for me because it was a 6 week holiday for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
I had
But
to stop work. Sharon didn't.
yeah, she was happy to hang out with you, and
Oh, I was so happy to hang out with him because,
yeah.
again, as you said, when someone you love gets a diagnosis, it makes you realize that we're not always going to be here.
Yeah.
We've no
Exactly.
idea what the future holds for any of us. And we do sometimes take the people we love for granted. We're not doing it intentionally, but
No.
we're just like, are you sure they're there? But again, when you're given that diagnosis, suddenly realizing, what if they weren't here?
Oh,
And I remember when John went in for surgery, and I did cry myself to sleep that night. I told him that anyway. But
yeah.
I remember thinking, what if he's not back in this bed after surgery?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Everything
What
goes
what
through
would
your
that
head.
feel like in my life? And it was for me, I had to process all of that. That's not, John didn't have to deal with that. It
Yeah.
was for me, it's like, well, what if he doesn't come home? you know, and it
Yeah.
was realizing that there's going to be a point in both of our lives as partners that one will not be there for the reason
Yeah.
of maybe not cancer, but maybe for something else, and that it is
Absolutely.
a fact of life, and it's something that we do need to speak more about and not try and push it away and pretend it's not happening. So again, there's an acceptance that it is going to happen to us all at some stage, but that while you're here and alive, even if you're going through a diagnosis, that it's not the end of the world. Here's an opportunity to reconnect. Here's an opportunity to value each other. Here's an opportunity to live the best life you can while you're living, while you're
Absolutely.
alive.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
That's absolutely it. And,
yeah.
we only get one life. So it's, but I think when you do get cancer, it kind of shakes you, stops you in your tracks, and you just kind of go,
Yeah.
whoa, hang on. You know, it knocks
Mm,
you off the path, as to say, a little bit, and you kind of shake yourself off and you get back on it. And
yeah.
that's, exactly what
You
I'm
take a
doing.
new path,
Yeah,
Vanessa.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you can be
100%.
better for it then,
Yeah.
Yeah, all day
Mm,
long.
mm.
And that's
Mm.
why I think with my app that's coming out very soon, I'm so excited about it.
So excited for you.
I know, I can't wait. So much work has gone into it and to help so many people. Because obviously going through having cancer and, I think it's so important to have it for family members and friends. There's not as much support for that.
No.
And anyone that I've spoken to in the hospitals, when I said that's going to be a main feature of the app, they were like, that is just amazing,
Yeah.
because it's so badly needed for, you to talk to someone that's going through the same thing, or a mother, a
Mm,
daughter. So yeah, it's great. It's great to see
yeah.
that it's going to bring everyone together as a community.
Yeah,
And
and
Yeah,
as you said, Vanessa, and I said that to you a long time ago, through your own lived experience and
yeah,
what you had gone through, you could see what was needed, what was lacking, where the
yeah,
support was needed the most. And that's why I just think you're amazing for creating the app. and
Yeah.
the podcast to go with it and share
The whole
people's
lot.
real stories, because
Yeah.
that's where you learn the most, is from people's shared experiences and what worked for them and how you could support yourself maybe through whatever, and
Yeah.
listening from people. And again, we're all different. Remember that,
Yeah.
what worked for John may not work for another person, but
Yeah.
knowing that you're not alone through the journey is a huge thing. Even as you said, John, you heard of people and it kind of makes you feel like, oh, they're got through it and they're okay,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know?
And it makes you kind of go, wow, okay, that's great,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's taking the fear out of it too, and that's
yeah.
the
Yeah.
fear causes stress, and the stress leads to other things.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
take the
Stress
fear
is
out
the
of it. That's
biggest
a big
killer,
bonus.
isn't it? In the world,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I suppose important to mention as well, I'm sure there are people listening to this that have lost loved ones
Yeah.
to cancer, and that, maybe they're going, well, that didn't help my father, mother, sister, brother, whoever. But there's support for them around it as well, because when you lose someone to cancer, then there's that huge fear that it's going to happen to you or someone else you love.
Yeah.
And maybe this will help support them, Vanessa, in the app, to say that,
Yeah.
yes, it is. You've gone through an extremely hard time. Losing that person was terrible, but that the fears sometimes can be worse than the diagnosis itself. So to
Absolutely.
know there are people there to support you.
Yeah, 100%. And Sharon, you've been my inspiration as well behind all this, and she's been helping me so much. So I'm delighted, and thank you so much for all the support you've been giving me and just the encouragement. And I've been listening to Sharon's podcast, so that's been inspiring me to say, do you know what? I'm going to do a podcast and talk to people and hear the real stories and get it out there. And so it's
Yeah.
great, and it's just been amazing. But I want to thank you so much, both of you, for coming on and taking the time and talking about your journey and, just getting it out there and showing people there is hope and there is light at the end of it. It's not all doom and gloom, and,
No.
you get your spark back. Like, you start to live again, if not brighter sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
And again, it's like anything in life. We're all going through different challenges. And when you're moving through that, it's quite hard. But I
yeah,
always say it's reach out to the people you know that will support you and that are there for you. And if you can't find that in a circle of people around you, you'll have the app that you're creating. There is
exactly.
Cancer Care West. There's lots of cancer care groups that are there to support people.
Yeah,
So you don't have to do it on your own. Nobody has to do anything on their own. But those challenges sometimes can, and I've seen, like you, Vanessa, people go on this
yeah,
huge new adventure in their life and they do something with such purpose and passion like you're doing that's going to help and inspire others. So yeah, look at
yeah.
you, Vanessa. Look
I
at
know.
you.
Thank you. No, it's come from a real passionate place and it's come from experience. And like, I'm so excited with this podcast as well. Like you said, to actually get people on and get it, the real stories behind it, the good and the bad. And, to let people know that it's a safe place and you can come here together and chat, and 3 o'clock in the morning when you're worried, listen to a podcast and have a laugh, join us, go and chat to
Yeah.
someone and
Yeah.
talk about it. And so yeah, I'm
That
delighted.
was one of the things that stuck out for me, Vanessa. It was like when you were going through treatment and you really felt unwell, and it was the early hours of the morning and everyone
Yeah,
else is asleep, and you really felt like you needed to talk to somebody.
yeah,
But who could you talk to? Whereas when you
exactly.
have the app, you could put in and go, anybody else up in the middle of the night? And you'd probably get 50 replies.
I'm telling you, it's going to be the busiest time. I've always said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, I'm delighted. And with Breast Cancer Ireland getting on board to, supporting me, it's great. It's been great. And with I Donate as well, doing all the tech and
Yeah.
part, I'm really lucky, and
Yeah.
having the likes of you, Sharon, and loads of other people supporting it. And for John coming on today and telling his story and getting it out there and saying, lads, come on, shake yourself. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
yeah,
Go and
yeah.
do it.
Trousers down.
Trousers down.
Which you don't need to have to do for a blood test, of course.
No.
So
I
yeah,
know. No.
So yeah,
but
just, and I
yeah, no,
think
thanks
that,
very much. Yeah,
and I think as John
Yeah.
said, that's the most important message that John has always wanted to share after this
Yeah.
is it's a simple blood test.
Yeah.
Just go, just stop thinking about it, just book yourself in, pop into your local GP and get your PSA. It saved John's life.
Yeah,
and we're so grateful. So if you're
absolutely.
afraid to do it for yourself, do it for your family or the ones that love you.
That's it,
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. Yeah, because they're the ones who really worry. I
Yeah,
mean,
all
a
day.
person can deal with their own fear, but
Yeah,
it's your loved ones, the way they fear for you. A simple blood test can just put everyone's mind at ease.
absolutely, 100%. And also, Sharon has her own podcast called the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast, I want to say,
Mhm.
guys. So please, I'll going to leave it in the links in the bottom of this podcast where you can go and listen to all her amazing stories. You have some, I'm on it also at the very beginning.
He
Well,
sure
not at the
is.
very beginning, one of when I first started this whole journey
Yeah.
with the app. But yeah, I've been listening to your podcast from the beginning and they're amazing. They're brilliant. They're really inspiring. And it also just shows the strength and courage that so many people have gone through. And like I said,
Mhm.
your podcast, Sharon's podcast, has inspired me to create this one focusing on cancer and family and stuff, whereas Sharon's covers so many different topics. So yeah, well done,
And it
Sharon, on that.
celebrates the resilience of the human spirit, and that's one of the things that, and why you were a guest, Vanessa, because it is
Yeah.
your resilience and what you're
Yeah.
doing after that journey. And I think it's something we forget. It's like, John, we're all resilient even when we're going through the worst times, but we don't know that until we
Exactly.
have to deal with it. So yeah, just like you, it's sharing stories of people that have come through all kinds of things in their lives. And like you, I'm inspired by them as well, because it makes you feel like, you know what, again, we can go through hard things, but we can come through them too.
Mm.
Absolutely. That's
Mm.
brilliant. So, yeah, thank you so much for my very first interview guest. So, I'm delighted to have you here. And yeah, so I'm going to say goodbye to you all and I will talk to you all soon.
Thank you,
Thank you, Vanessa.
Vanessa.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck with the app.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to Someone Like Me, your cancer community podcast. If this episode meant something to you, please share it with someone who might need it. And if you feel up to it, leave a little rating or a comment. It really, really helps spread the word. But most of all, be kind to yourself. And remember, you're not alone. And I will talk to you very, very soon.